Hello, Ian Jameson here again, and thank you so much for joining me through these studies through the 12 days of Christmas. And we've come now to number 5. 5 gold rings. Of course, that's the famous one, isn't it? And I'd like to take you to Exodus chapter 25. Exodus chapter 25, and we're going to read verses 11 and 12. I may not be able to find you 5 gold rings, but I can find 4. You shall overlay it with pure gold, inside and outside shall you overlay it, and you shall make on it a moulding of gold around it. You shall cast 4 rings of gold for it, and put them on its 4 feet, 2 rings on the one side of it, and 2 rings on the other side of it. Well, what are we talking about here in Exodus chapter 25? We're talking about the Ark of the Covenant. The Ark of the Covenant. Earlier on in the chapter, in verses 8 and 9, God to Moses makes a remarkable statement. And let them make me a sanctuary, that I may dwell in their midst, exactly as I show you concerning the pattern of the tabernacle and of all its furniture, so you shall make it. God hasn't dwelt with man since mankind was barred from the Garden of Eden because of the entrance of sin, disobedience, wickedness, the cherubim and the flaming sword barring their return to that place of perfection. And it's a seemingly impossible situation, a hopeless separation between God and his creator, and yet God in his love, through the nation of Israel, is providing a picture book to the rest of mankind of divine truth. And he says here, it is possible that I can dwell with you if you make this tabernacle according to the pattern that I give you. Later in the chapter, in verse 22, another amazing thing is said. Verse 22, there I will meet with you, and from above the mercy seat, from between the 2 cherubim that are on the ark of the testimony, I will speak with you about all that I will give you in commandment for the people of Israel. Friends, the tabernacle was a picture of divine truth, and 2 remarkable things are stated here. God is going to meet with his people, and he's going to speak to his people. Communion and communication from God Almighty, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the unseen creator of all things. To walk into the tabernacle was to walk into a picture of divine principles. You walk in and there's the bronze altar of sacrifice. Beyond it is the laver or the sea where the washing and cleansing would take place. Then into the holy place, and on your left, that amazing candlestick glowing as a perpetual testimony. Then the table of showbread over on your right hand side, and in front of you the altar of incense, speaking of worship, and beyond that the most holy place, past the curtain, and in here, this is where God dwells. This is where God dwells, and there is the Ark of the Covenant, and there are those 4 golden rings. You might say, well, why do details like that matter? You know, every detail in the tabernacle is significant. It's dripping with truth about Christ. And we don't have time to go into all of those details in a short video like this. But I just want to establish one principle, I suppose, and that is this, that God is going to dwell with men. That God is going to dwell with men. Well, when we think about that, we can't help but think about the Christmas story, can we? And our minds go to Matthew's Gospel, and to chapter 1. And those amazing words that we are given by Matthew just after Joseph has been spoken to in his dream by an angel. All this took place to fulfill what the Lord had spoken by the prophet. That's the prophet Isaiah. Behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and they shall call his name Emmanuel. Emmanuel, which means God with us. It's one thing for the glory of God to come and to make its dwelling, to make God's dwelling in the tabernacle and then later in the temple. And for the high priest to be able to go in just once a year into that most holy place, but God is going to become man. Emmanuel, God with us. And we could visit that stable in Bethlehem, couldn't we, and say, this is God. This is God, the image of the invisible God, Colossians 1:15 tells us. Men can now meet with God, and God has made it possible in the sending of his Son for us to know what it is to dwell with him. John chapter 1 verse 14. The Word became flesh and has tabernacled, has dwelt among us. Every blessing.